Hello guys, welcome back to the channel again. In today's video we are going to install again Artix Linux, but this time we are going to use the runit init system. So the runit init system is a little different than OpenRC or systemd, of course. To enable services we need to use other commands, and after testing it for a few days I have to say I really like the runit init system. It's fairly simple to configure and it works really reliably. Let's get going. So let's get going. We want to install Artix Linux, this time with the runit init system. And before we can do this, we need to of course download the ISO from the Artix website. So let me pull this up here. And this is the artix-linux.org website where you can download our ISO. So we can go to download here. And if we scroll down, we have several choices, and the one we are looking for in our case is the Artix space runit ISO. The last time we installed the OpenRC, this time we're going to do the runit ISO. We have also options here to download already some pre-made ISO with desktop environments, but we want to do it from scratch. So we're going to download this ISO here, burn it to a stick, and boot up our machine from there. So go ahead and download your ISO, burn it on a USB stick, and boot your machine from there. I'm going to install this on my laptop again because I want to show you also how you can set up Wi-Fi during the installation. So burn the ISO to the USB stick, boot your machine from there, and when you reach the login prompt, which is a little different than usual, just type into the login prompt root as a username and Artix as a password, and you will be ready to install. So I'll meet you there in a second. So there we go. I booted up now the machine from the ISO, and what I did, I actually already installed in my machine OpenSSH so that I can show you here with bigger commands on a bigger terminal. Now let's get going and begin the installation. The first thing we need to do is to make sure that we have an internet connection. So let's type in IP space A. And you can see here I have two interfaces. One is my Ethernet interface where I have an Ethernet cable connected, and this one has already an IP ending with 117. So Ethernet is automatically configured for us. I have also a Wi-Fi card here, which is called WLAN 0. Right now it's actually not working because it's not connected. So in case you have a cable here, you have nothing to worry about. It's already working out of the box. But if you want to use Wi-Fi, we need to set this up. So the first thing we need to do is to bring this interface up, and to do this we need to type in IP link and then set, and then the name of the interface, so in my case is WLAN 0, and then up, and hit enter. Now you can see here I get an error, operation not possible due to RF kill. That means Wi-Fi is right now blocked. We need to unblock this first. If you have the same error you can follow along, if not you're good to go. You can skip this step. But in my case, I need to type in RF kill and then unblock and then Wi-Fi and hit enter. There you go. So we can clean up the terminal and now type in again the last two commands here, IP link set up and hit enter. And you see now it's working. Now to connect to the wireless network, we need to use the conman utility. So to do this, you can type in conman ctl and hit enter. Now the first thing we need to do is to scan for Wi-Fi. So we can type in scan Wi-Fi and hit enter. And there you go, the scan is completed. Now to see a list of the networks, we can type in services and hit enter. And you can see that we have lots of networks here around. So the one I'm looking for is the first one here. And in order to connect to it, we need to use this string. No worries here, we can use autocomplete to do that. Now, the first thing we need to actually register the agent to handle user requests. So we can type in agent on and hit enter. And now we can connect to our Wi-Fi by typing in connect. And then I'm going to type in Wi-Fi underscore and the tab to autocomplete the first part. And I'm just going to enter the first three numbers of my network. So I'll type in 656 and hit the tab to autocomplete and hit enter. Now I can type in my passphrase and hit enter, and the network is now connected. So now we can leave this command here by typing in quit and hit enter and clean up the terminal. Now let's type in IP space A, and as you can see now my WLAN 0 interface has also an IP ending with 119. Now I'm going to use for this install of course Ethernet because it's a little faster, but I just wanted to show you how it works. So now let's clean up the terminal and type in lsblk because we need to have a look at our disk. So in my laptop here, I have a disk called NVMe 0 and 1. And this one has already two partitions because I already created a system there a few days ago with OpenRC. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete these partitions and create two new ones. And to do this, I'm going to use the cfdisk tool, which is already present in the ISO. So we can type in cfdisk /dev/nvme 0 and 1 and hit enter. Now I need to delete these partitions. You probably don't need to do this if you're installing the first time, but I'm going to go here to delete and move down to the second partition and hit delete again. And now go to write, type in yes to confirm and hit enter. And the partition table has been altered. That means the disk has been now rewritten. So let's go now to new and hit enter. Now, this is a UEFI system and we need to create an EFI partition. This is mandatory. And we need to also create a root partition, which is also mandatory. I'm not going to create a home partition on this specific system, but if you choose to do so, you can definitely do so by creating an extra partition. Now, the first partition I want to create is the EFI partition, and that's going to be around 200 megabytes. So I'm going to delete this number here and type in 200M and hit enter. Now, I need to tell the system this is a EFI system type, so I need to go to type here and scroll down to the top of the list and select EFI system. Now let's move down to the free space to create the second partition and hit new. And for this partition, I'm going to use the remainder of the disk, so I'm just going to hit enter here. And the Linux file system type is already selected for me, so that's fine. And now we can write the changes to the disk, so we go to write and hit enter, type in yes and hit enter, and the partition table has been altered. So we can quit now out of cfdisk, so let's go to quit and hit enter. Now let's clean up the terminal, and again lsbrk will have of course the same partitions, but now we are ready to format them. So let's begin with the first partition, which is the EFI partition, and this one needs to be formatted with the FAT file system. So to do this, we can type in mkfs.fat, so make file system FAT system type, and the file system type is -f32, and the partition name is /dev/nvme 0 and 1 p1, and hit enter. Now let's repeat the process for the second partition, but this time we're going to format it with another file system type, of course. So we can type in mkfs.ext4. I'm going to format it as an ext4 file system type, and the partition name is /dev/nvme 0 and 1 p2, and hit enter. Now, it detected already a file system in there because I had already previously another partition, but you probably don't see this. If you do, just hit Y here and hit enter to proceed anyway. And the format is complete. So let's clean up the terminal. Type in again lsbrk to have my partitions in front of me. And now that we format the partitions, we can mount them in our system. So the first partition we need to mount is the root partition, which is the P2 partition. So to do this, we can type in mount /dev/nvme 0 and 1 p2, and we're going to mount this under /mount because it's our installation directory, and hit enter. Now we need to mount a EFI partition into the boot directory, which is not existing yet, so we need to create that first. To create that directory, we can type in mkdir and then -p because I want to create actually two directories. Then /mount, which is already existing, then /boot, this is the first directory I want to create, and then /EFI. Now you can mount, of course, the EFI partition also on /boot only. This is really a matter of personal preference. I like to do it on EFI, but you can feel free, of course, to mount it under /boot. And then I'm going to hit enter. And now we can mount the EFI partition into the EFI directory by typing in mount /dev/nvme 0 and 1 p1, and then /mount /boot /EFI, and hit enter. Let's clean up the terminal lsbrk to see our mount points. So we have the first partition on EFI and the second partition on mount. Everything looks good, and we can proceed by installing the base system. So let's type in base trap /mount. So we are going to install this, of course, in the mount directory. And the packages we need to install for the runit system are base and also base-devel. We need to install also runit and also elogind-runit. And then we can also install the Linux kernel and also Linux-firmware. I'm going to install an editor as well, in my case Vim. And I want to install also Intel-ucode. Now, if you have an AMD processor, you can install AMD-ucode, and then we can just hit enter. Now, this is going to take a moment to download and install, so I'll be back when it's done. So there you go, the packages are now installed. So let's clean up the terminal, and the next step is, of course, to generate the file system table where all our mount points are stored. So to do this in Artix, we can type in fstabgen and then -u, so it's going to be generated using the UUIDs of the partitions, and then /mount, and we're going to append this information to /mount /etc/fstab, and hit enter. Now let's have a look at the fstab file shortly. Let's type in cat /mount /etc/fstab and hit enter. You can see here we have our two partitions. We have the first partition here, which is our root partition with the UUID, the mount point, file system type options, and file system checks. And the same goes for the EFI partition. So everything looks correct, and we can clean up the terminal and move into the installation and leave the ISO installer. And to do this, we can type in artools-chroot /mount and hit enter. Now you can see also the login prompt changed. So we are now in the installation and not anymore in the ISO installer. So let's clean up the terminal. And the first thing I want to do is to create a swap file. Now to create a swap file, I'm going to use the dd command. So I'll type in dd and then if equals /dev/0 of equals /swap file and then bs equal 1g count equal 2 status equal progress. So we are basically creating here a 2 GB swap file. BS is the base. For 1 GB, the count is 2. So we are counting twice 1 GB. So the swap file is going to be 2 GB and hit enter. Now we need to change the permissions on the swap file. To do this, we'll type in chmod 600/swap file and hit enter. Now we can make the swap by typing in mkswap/swap file. And we can also activate it by typing in swap-on/swap file and hit enter. Now we need to put also the swap file in the fstab file. So let's clean up the terminal and type in vim/etc/fstab and hit enter. I'll go down here to the empty space and type in /swap file. And the mount point is none because it doesn't have any. The file system type is swap. Options are defaults. And the file system checks are 0 and 0. And then we can save the file and exit vim. And this is done. So now we can go ahead and work on our time zones. So the first thing is to select our time zone. And to do this, we can type in ln-sf/user/share/zone info and then /Europe in my case and /Zurich in my case. You'll replace these accordingly. And then /etc/local time and hit enter. Now we can synchronize the hardware clock and then system clock. So we can type in hw clock space --sys to hc and hit enter. Now this is done and we can work on our locale.gen file. So we can type in vim/etc/locale.gen and hit enter. Now we are looking basically here to our locale. So I'm going to look again for English US. I'm scrolling down here with Control F on the keyboard. And I see English US right here. And the one we need is actually the one ending with UTF-8. So I'm going to delete the hashtag here and then save the file and exit vim. And now we can generate the locales by typing in locale-gen and hit enter. Now we need to put also the locale string into the locale.conf file. So to do this, we can type in vim/etc/locale.conf and hit enter. And the string is lang equal en_us.utf-8. Then we can save the file and exit vim. Now let me clean up the terminal and work on our hostname. So let's type in vim/etc/hostname and hit enter. Now we basically give a name to the machine. I'll call this one Artix, and then we can save the file and exit vim. And we can work also on the hosts file. So we can type in vim/etc/hosts and hit enter. I'll go down here to the empty space one more time and type in the IPv4 address. So 127.0.0.1 tab localhost. Next line is the IPv6 address ::1. This is the standard, of course. Tab localhost again. And the last line 127.0.1.1 tab and then the host name. So in my case, Artix.local domain and then a tab again and Artix again. This is my host name. And then we can save the file and exit vim. And we can now give a password to the root user by typing in passwd and hit enter, enter the new password and retype it. Okay, now it's time to install the bootloader and other packages. So let's type in pacman-s. The first package is grub, our bootloader. And we need to install also EFI boot mgr, since it's a EFI system. And then I want to install network manager and also network manager dash runit. And we can install also network dash manager dash applet. One package for fat file systems, DOS FS tools. And I want to install also Linux dash headers and some packages for our Bluetooth adapter. Well, the first one is Blues. And I want to install also Blues dash runit and also Blues dash utils. I want to install also the printing system caps, so I'll type in caps and also caps-runit. And two extra packages, one is xdg-utils and xdg-user-dirs for user directories. And this is going to do it for a base install, so I'll just hit enter here and accept the defaults. Accept also the defaults for this group and the following groups. And it's going to take a moment now to download and install the packages, so I'll be back when it's done. So there you go, the packages are all installed. So let's clean up the terminal and install first the grub bootloader by typing in grub-install and then --target to define the target machine equal x86_64-EFI and then --EFI-directory. We need to specify our boot directory, so equal /boot/EFI in my case. And then bootloader-id equal grub. And then I can hit enter. It's going to take a second to do this. There you go. Now we need to generate the configuration file for grub, so we can type in grub-mkconfig, then -o, so the output goes under /boot/grub/grub.cfg and hit enter. And this is done. Now, in a normal installation of Arch Linux, or what I did also on Artix with OpenRC, I would now be enabling our services so that when the machine boots up, we have, for example, our internet working, Bluetooth, and a printing system working as well. Now, in runit, this works a little differently, and let me show you why. So the runit init system lists actually the services available in a specific directory. So I want to show you how it works. Let's type in cd/etc/runit/sv and hit enter and type in ls. Now these are the services available in our system. They are not necessarily all already active. For example, you can see we have network manager here. We have also caps-d, the printing system, and bluetooth-d, our Bluetooth adapters. Now these are not active yet, and we cannot activate them until we reboot our machine. And that's because we need to actually link these services to a specific directory which is not running until we reboot the system we just installed. So we are going to activate those services once we reboot the machine. But before we do this, let me create also a user for the system. So we can type in user add and then -m capital G and then wheel and the username, in my case my name, and hit enter. Now we created a user here with the home directory, that's the M switch, and the capital G is the supplementary group, which is the wheel group, which is going to be defining the sudo privileges, and we'll do this in a second. But first, let's give a password to the user by typing in passwd and then the username, enter new password, and retype it. Now let's type in editor equal vim and then sudo and hit enter. Now we scroll down here with Control F until we find the wheel group we just talked about. And we have to be careful, there are two of those, and the one we need is the one ending with all equal all, and we need to basically delete the hashtag here to activate it. And that means every member belonging to the wheel group will now have sudo privileges. Now we can save the file and exit vim. Now I can reboot my machine as well, and I will need to activate the service after I rebooted the machine. So first we need to exit the installation and return to the ISO installer by typing in exit. Now we need to unmount all partitions by typing in umount -r and then /mount and hit enter. Target is busy, is fine. And now we can reboot our machine. So just go ahead, reboot your machine. If everything went well, you will see grub. Select the first option, Artix Linux. And when you see the login prompt, just put in your username and the password we just created or log in as a root user. And I'll meet you back there in the login prompt in a second. All right, so I logged in here with my username and the password. And the next step is going to be to actually enable the systems in our installation. But the first thing, I want to switch to the sudo user. So I'll type in sudo space su, enter my password, and there you go. Now, I want to show you one directory which actually before we restarted the machine was not running. And that was the reason why we couldn't actually enable services. I'll change to the home directory here and type in cd/run/runit/service and hit enter. Type in ls. And you can see here we have the list of services running in our system. Now, the runit directory was not actually working before we rebooted the machine. And that, as I said before, was the reason why we needed to reboot the machine before we actually can enable these services. Now, as you can see here, I had to already enable Network Manager and SSHD. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to connect via SSHD here. But I'll show you now how you can enable them in your system. So let's go back to the home directory and clean the terminal. Now, to enable a system, there is a specific command, and this command will enable the system and also start it right away. So if you want to, for example, enable and start Network Manager, you can type in ln-s. So we are creating basically a soft link between the service in our etc runit directory and into the run directory we just saw. So let's type in /etc/runit/sv for service, and then Network Manager with capital N and capital M. And the directory where we want to link this is /run/runit/service/network manager. You'll have to type this in and then hit enter. Once you hit enter, the service will be enabled and started automatically. And if you have a cable connection, you will be already having internet. If you have Wi-Fi, we'll set up this in a second. Now let me delete this command because I already enabled Network Manager on my side. Now if you type in IP space A, you can see, for example, in my case, on my internet connection, I have already an IP ending with 117. However, on my Wi-Fi is still nothing there. So to configure Wi-Fi now, you can type in nmtui, since this is the Network Manager terminal user interface, and hit enter. You can go down to activate a connection, and you will see the list of networks here. So I can select mine, for example, and enter my password and hit enter. And it's going to take a second here to connect. There you go. And now we can exit here the program by hitting escape. And if we type in again IP space A, you can see we have now an IP also on my Wi-Fi ending with 119. So everything is set to go. We need to still enable our Bluetooth service and also our CUPS printing system service. So to do this, we'll use basically the same command that we used before, and that is ln-s and then /etc/runit/sv for service /. So the first service I want to enable is Bluetooth, and the service name is Bluetooth D, and we're going to link this again under /run/runit/service/Bluetooth D and hit enter. Now we're going to repeat the same thing for the CUPS printing system. So I'm just going to pull up the last command with the up arrow and replace basically Bluetooth D with CUPS D. And the directory where it's going to link is going to be also different. This is going to be CUPS D as well. And hit enter. There you go. Now Bluetooth is working and the printing system is working as well. So everything is fine, and we can proceed by installing the rest of the system. So we need to install again the graphics drivers, we need to install the display manager, display server, and the desktop environment. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll type in pacman-s. The first one is the graphic driver. So if you have an Intel card, like in my case, you can type in xf86-video-intel. If you have an AMD card, you can replace Intel with AMD GPU. And if you have an NVIDIA card, you can replace this with NVIDIA and NVIDIA-utils. This will work for newer cards. If you have older cards or cards older than 2010, you're going to need to actually find out the card name. And I'll leave a link to the Arch Wiki about this in the video description below. Well, it will describe the procedure on how to install drivers for older NVIDIA cards. Now, in my case, I'm going to install here the Intel card. And now we need to install the display server, so it's going to be Xwork. Now, again, following the Artix tutorials, we need to actually ignore the server xdmx package. So we can do this by typing --ignore xwork-server-xdmx. And next, we can install the display manager. So in this tutorial, I'm going to install KDE. So the display manager of choice is SDDM. So I'll type in SDDM and also SDDM-runit because we need to enable it afterwards. And the desktop environment is going to be Plasma. And we could install also KDE-applications for extra apps for KDE, and also package-kit-qt5 to be able to update packages from the Discover Software Center if you want to do that. And I'm going to install also a browser, so in my case, Chromium. And that's going to do it for me in this base install, so I can just hit enter here and accept the defaults here for several groups. And now we can hit enter to proceed with the installation. So this is going to take some time to download and install, so I'll be back when it's done. So the packages are installed. Let's clean up the terminal, and now we need to enable the display manager so that we can boot up in a graphical environment. And to do this, we'll use the same method we used before. We need to link the service into the runit directory. So let's type in ln-s and then /etc/sv/sddm, and we're going to link this under /run/runit/service/sddm. So when we hit enter now, the display manager will start immediately because this command is going to enable it, but it's going to start it also automatically. If you run into troubles, just type in reboot after that and reboot your machine, and you should be able to log into the graphical environment, but it should be working actually right away. So I hit enter too now, and I'll meet you back on the KDE desktop in a second. So there we go. We are here in the KDE desktop environment and everything seems to be working fine. So let's open up the terminal. In KDE is the console. And let me increase here the size of it. There you go. And I'll go also full screen. So I will leave a link in the video description below to a Artix wiki where it shows you how you can use actually runit commands to stop and enable services. Until now, we saw how we can enable services and start them automatically. However, if you want to shut down one service, for example, let's say we want to shut down here the Bluetooth service, what we can do, we can type in sudo sv for service down, and then the service name. So the Bluetooth service is Bluetooth D, and hit enter. We'll need to enter our sudo password and hit enter. And there you go, Bluetooth is now down. Now, if we want to bring back the service, we can pull up the last command here and replace down with up. And Bluetooth is working again. Now, if you need to restart a service, you would replace up in this case with restart and hit enter. And by the way, the restart command also equals to the reload command. So these are just a few commands on how to manage the services in runit. But as I said, I will leave a link to this in the video description below. So there you go, guys. This is a base install of Artix Linux with the runit init system. As I said before, I really like the runit init system. It's fairly simple, and it's fairly simple also to configure and to maintain. And in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you also how to install Artix Linux with the S6 init system. I hope you liked the video, guys. If you did, please hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Subs always helps us out. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so by visiting our Patreon website, or you can donate via PayPal to our website as well. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys, and I'll see you very soon in the next one.